We're back. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to have a veteran CFL defensive player, TJ Lee, join me on this episode of the GoldenV podcast, which we are running on Monday, February 17th, 2025. TJ and I are just setting up how to get into the studio, but now we're going to kick it off. So I built this as TJ is going to talk about football, family, and life as a CFL player for over a decade. And I did some research. Actually, I did quite a bit of research. And I came up with some stuff, or I was trying to come up with some stuff where we asked TJ questions that may not have been asked before. And one of the first ones I came up with was your love of football and where did it come from?
Okay. First, thanks for having me. I feel comfortable being here with you because it was, our relationship hit it off pretty well from the jump. So it's nice to have, conversation with someone I'm comfortable with. So, my love for football, I think it came at the age of 7. I have older siblings and, they're it's about a 5-year gap and I'm the youngest. So, it was kind of those things, me watching those guys play, and kind of just developed a love for it through watching. And when I got the chance, we went by weight. And I was a heavy set kid. I was around 6, 7 years old. I was the biggest. One of the biggest. So I started out at defensive line, D-line, D-N, and just that physicalness that's how that developed. And, obviously the praise from the siblings got me into it. And the next year I was still big. So they put me at running back. Then that's kind of how the love kind of shifted, because I was just running through folks and, being the biggest guy. And then eventually everybody caught up to me, and after around 8, everybody caught up to me size-wise and weight-wise, and that's when,
because it's interesting because I always wondered that about you because there's a ton of stuff on the internet. There's a ton of stuff when you were with the BC Lions about Arrow Up episodes and podcasts and YouTube information and videos. But there wasn't ever anything about how you got your football start. There's a lot of stuff about things that you did or, your play in the CFL and with the BC Lions. But I was always curious about how you got started because I think it's an important question. And it leads to one of my later questions. But just to preface so people know, you and I met at the Grey Cup in Vancouver at the one of the Grey Cup sort of networking events. We were in the BC Lions pavilion, and I'd never been to a Grey Cup festival. I'd never actually been to a Grey Cup. So you and I ended up sitting next to each other. Then we just ended up chatting. Then you were gracious enough to get me a ticket for the Grey Cup yourself. And so that was kind of how that relationship got started. But that's why I was researching you, because I wanted to know where your love of football came. But then you also told me that I didn't know you were born in Houston, Texas. So I assume that's where you started playing football.
No, that's not where I started playing. That was before I initially just started when we moved from Texas to Washington. So I started as a football player. I think you had to be 7 years old to start playing in the state of Washington at least. So that's how I got started, and that's essentially why I consider myself more from Seattle, or Washington than Texas, because that's when I developed kind of more of a friend base and through sports, and that's how that came about.
Okay. Because obviously growing up in Washington State, you played for the Eastern Washington Eagles, and I did that research a little bit on that team. So where did you go to high school? So you lived in Seattle, but then you transferred to Eastern Washington? How did that work?
No, so I started out in the state of Washington, played in Seattle, and went to West Seattle High School to play football. And then after West Seattle High School, got recruited to go to Eastern Washington University. So, at Eastern Washington University is when that's on the other side of Washington. Yeah, I also met my wife there as well.
You said that.
So, that's kind of how everything came about. So, so
because
Brian Adams and GoldenV and a lot of the CFL players in the league came out of Eastern Washington as well.
Which is another thing that I didn't know. I mean, obviously, it's maybe not as high profile school as some of the college football schools that are in Washington State, like the Washington Huskies or the Washington State Cougars, right? So It's probably not, maybe doesn't sound quite as glamorous to some people, but it's obviously an important incubator, if not for NFL talent, but for CFL talent, which is something that's pretty important, right? Because I did see that you played there, and then I was wondering, I was doing some research, and so you came to be drafted by the BC Lions, and it was actually mentioned last week in a press conference. You were picked up by them in a free agent camp. Is that how it went?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. The way it came about, I didn't know anything about the CFL, unfortunately, until my senior year. I was a little banged up coming out of college, and the opportunity kind of rose like overnight. Literally, it was just overnight. One of my guys or someone came across me. I think probably my agent at the time. He was like, "There's a tryout in Seattle with the BC Lions." I'm like, "What are they?" You know, it's just a football team in Canada. He's like, "If you can get down here in the morning, and it's about a 4.5 hour drive." And my wife, now girlfriend, she's like, "Oh, I'll take you." I didn't have a car in college, and so she drove me down, fresh out of the car in the morning, tried out, and they told me I made the team. Ryan Phillips was there. They told me I made the team and that I need to get a passport. So I ended up getting my passport in a day, one day. And next thing you know, it's crazy how everything aligned for me to have such a long career in the league. Because literally I got that passport in a day, and then camp came around, and that's a whole different story in itself, where it's like I didn't get any repetitions until probably like 2 days before the first preseason game. Because, you know, the rosters are stacked. You got guys coming from the NFL, and, you know, just the rosters being stacked and me not getting a lot of opportunities until pretty much game. And so once the game came, made a lot of plays, and then called my girlfriend and was like, "Hey, we're moving, pack your bags." I made the team, after about the first game, and the rest is, what it is, a part of the journey.
Yeah, and it's an interesting journey, right, too, because you were here for 10 years. Obviously, you got to know the city of Vancouver pretty well, the province of British Columbia pretty well, the BC Lions organization pretty well. And I think I said to you when we first met, it was kind of always the expectation that, at least for me in the last 10 years when you were going to be on the field on defense, we knew what we were going to get, right? There was going to be leadership. There was going to be intensity. There was going to be a high level of play. There was going to be a passion for the game that probably for a lot of people was unmatched. But I'm curious about how you started, because it says 2014 through 2024. And we'll get to sort of the news last week about what happened in terms of about the Lions statement about whether you're coming back. Because fast forward to 2016, you had your first injury, right? With the first Achilles injury. So tell me a little bit about that, because I don't remember that one as well, but I remember the one in 2023 really well.
2016. Let's go back to the archives. It's like opening up a file. 2016. A lot of promise, especially in my career. I'm looking to get a contract extension, getting through my rookie deal. Rookie deal is the harshest one. Because you got to do 2 years and do an option year. So I've had a great year before that, and I started out that option year perfect. Great interceptions in the preseason game, and started out the first couple games just dominant. And I think it was the first Mosaic field,
right?
Where it happened, and it was the fourth quarter with like 2 minutes left. I was guarding Naaman Roosevelt, and it was just one of those situations where I'm like, these digs, he keep running the same digs, same routes, and I'm like, all right. I haven't really been throwing them because I've been covering them, but I'm like, granted, if he did throw it, I'm going to be in front of him to make that play, and close the game. I'm just thinking about this opportunity I'm going to get to close the game. And I kind of broke on it like no other. And when I broke on it, I cut in front of him, and I thought he kicked me and fell to the ground. And ended up being an Achilles. And ended up being the start of kind of that type of injury.
Right.
And so that happened, and I had to obviously do some career recourse, because I missed the majority of the season, missed the rest of the season. So
yeah,
and I was coming up on a contract year as well, so that was one of those things.
Yeah, I just dropped in the chat. I have your career record in the CFL. Obviously, the 17 games in 2015 with the 82 defensive tackles, the 3 sacks, the 4 interceptions, like great numbers, right? Then it drops to 2016 with the 4 games on 15 tackles. But then 2017 and 2018, you're really ascending again, right? One of the top defensive players in the league in 2018. Played all 18 games, 81 defensive tackles, right? 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. 2019 was another banner season for you. That takes us forward. Just looking at a few other things, because I found some funny stuff too that I really liked because you guys are doing a lot of comedy with the BC Lions, right? Like I found this one YouTube thing where you were asked 10 questions, and the other one where it was sponsored by London Drugs, and you were asked to rate Canadian snacks. And I had to share this one in the chat so people can watch it, because I spent most of the time laughing. I'm not going to share it right now, but it's you and Bo Lacumbo, thanks to London Drugs, eating chocolate bars. And I had a really good laugh at that, because I just thought it was hilarious. You guys were, hamming it up for the camera, and just generally goofing around. The other things I had questions for you too. There was a 10 questions one from 2021. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your family, because I sent this to you. Okay. Your biggest hero was your mom. I'm just looking at the question, so you can tell me about that. And then your biggest fear is snakes.
Yeah. I'll start with my biggest hero.
Of course.
Yeah, it's definitely my mom. She definitely takes the cake for that. Just everything she had to endure. She raised me and my brother and my cousins as well. And she's just a person of service that does for others, and a person of faith. And so that's one thing I know, if I don't do anything else, I know it's important to be of service to others. And that's the example that I've had my whole life, So that's generally my humble beginnings, and that's kind of what I do myself outside of football. I take pride in being of service to others in any way I can, and taking care of family. So she takes care of her brother as well and her sister as well. So in terms of taking care of others, she's a hero in that aspect, because I think that's the greatest value a person can have. So that's why she is my hero, and just she doesn't have a victim mindset, and she never has been, even when things were hard and tough, and she's always happy, So, and when it comes to battling through adversity, she kind of made everything I was going through seem effortless, and with the right perspective, Right. When you come from gratitude, and so that's why she is my hero. I know if there's anything I'm going through that I think is a lot, when I call her, she'll definitely minimize it, in a sense, giving me the perspective of everything I have, and that's kind of, the reason why. So fear. Snakes. It's been snakes, because I don't know, I can't kind of muster up myself to touch one. Just that kind of, like little pattern that their bodies make. It kind of makes my flesh crawl. So that's something that I couldn't muster up, to even touch. I could definitely watch him from a distance.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I know that's an interesting one, and I'm just looking at some other stuff that we were going to chat about. Some important stuff, because we talked about the Guardian Cap a little bit before too. Tell me about how the Guardian Cap came about, because I'm really interested in that. I mean, like, I've never played football, and I know I've always texted you to ask you questions about how to read plays on defense and how the defense is set up, and you gave me some good info, which I'm going to share one time. But how did the Guardian Cap come about? Because it sounded to me like it was a Canadian football or CFLPA requirement to wear it, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, it was a requirement. It became a requirement to play with it on our padded practices,
Okay.
our padded practice day, and we only had one padded practice day a week during the season. To minimize injuries. There's only so much during camp. You have probably 15 padded practices, so that's kind of a thing as well. But as the season goes, you want to minimize that. So you go into one practice a week with the Guardian caps, and the players, we always take it as a joke. It's like, oh, we got these things. What do? They don't do much. And I'm always the contrarian. I'm always against the grain.
Yes, you are.
Like, what if they even help 1 to 2%? Like, what if they help 1 to 2%? I wish I could have it on some plays that I know I'm blitzing. I wish I could have it on some plays.
Keep it in your back pocket on the field, right?
Yeah.
Just tuck it in your pants. Put it on.
Yeah.
Take it.
So yeah. I kind of joked around with the idea of actually playing with it, and guys like, no, don't play with that. You're gonna look silly. You're gonna look silly. Look like a bobblehead. It's big. It's heavy. And then I started hearing all the excuses of it, for us not to wear them, like, it's heavy. I'm like, it's like literally like less than a pound, maybe. I don't know how much it actually weighed. It didn't matter to me. But I was just like, over time, our necks aren't used to wearing it, so your neck's only going to get stronger if it is a thing, or the range of being able to see like a ball come over your shoulders and stuff, everybody started finding reasons why it wouldn't work. So that's when I always call it independent studies that I kind of develop in my own head. Like, well, what if it does help, and what does it mean, to me, if I do wear it, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll be the first, and I'll give everybody else the confidence to wear it as well. I'll try to make it look cool. I'm not sure if I did, but, and, also the added benefit, and support that I would be getting. So I started focusing on how it can help and who it would benefit, and my wife had a big part in it, because, when you play sports, it's about looking good as well. You want to look fly, you want to look nice on the field and all those things. So my wife was like, well, it's not like you're, looking for anybody or, it's like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not. So, I mean, it's not like I need to be looking the coolest, and so.
That's funny.
Just make it work like that. And she's like, being an example is important, and you want to be an example for your kids, and once she added that aspect in it, that's when I knew it was on. And I was like, oh, well, I can deal with the criticism and play with it and, see what comes about of it. And ended up being the first to score a touchdown in it. So I think that's pretty cool.
I remember that game against Calgary. I remember that game. Yeah, and I remember that game against Calgary. You picked off Jake Mayer, right, and ran it back for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And the team was struggling in that game to score points.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a pick. It was a
was it? Okay, no, I thought it was a pick.
A knockdown. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a knockdown. I wish it was a pick. That was kind of my aspirations for it. But I think the way he threw it, he kind of just adjusted it. He was trying to get it away from me, and I was just trying to reach out to kind of recalibrate to go exactly where it was going. And I knocked it down, but it was a lateral. So, hey.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to touch on with you too, I sent you the comments prior, and I sent you the quote. It was a quote from Ryan Ringmaiden last week about obviously the first day of free agency and just changes to the team and player changes. And I don't know who followed the conference. I did. I didn't get a chance to attend it in person like I normally do to go to the Lions facility, but I was a little surprised to see, what they said about you and Suk, given your tenure here, and things you guys meant to this franchise, and my looking for you two on the field for that market consistency. But the organization made the statement that they're basically looking to move on from you guys. I was a little disappointed, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. What you feel comfortable sharing. Just about what's happening now, because it sounds like, you've obviously overcome the second Achilles injury. You're still ready to play. What can you share about the options, about what's out there for you?
I mean, I I'm in acceptance of their position of everything, and that's one of those things that, my mom kind of bred in me, you want to be able to accept things. And when you accept things, you tend to not miss out on what's for you when you're accepting of everything else around you, So,
Right.
um, granted, me and my family, we had our own plans for free agency,
Okay.
and what we wanted to do with our family. Um, and it kind of stemmed from there's more new in a move for us. So we were definitely mulling over that. I know I didn't have much conversation with Rick Maiden at all about free agency because I kind of wanted things to play out naturally.
Right.
So the calls in December, I wasn't, available for because I wanted to spend time with my family. And when you talk about football and family as well, you want to give things the proper space, So
Right.
instantly, I didn't take any calls in December. Early January, I definitely took a call, and that's when we had a chat, but it wasn't I wasn't ready to make a decision as well. And I think that's probably what got them to make the decision for me in that terms. But um, once again, I wanted everything to unfold in terms of who the coaching staff was going to be, what the
Right.
picture looked like, what gives me the best chance to win, what helps my family elevate, So I know one thing's for sure: there's more new in a move from my family in terms of football, and that's not to say that I won't return, but I know when I look at all the variables as far as the BC Lions is concerned, um, you know, um, my conversations it was told to me that they're in a salary crunch.
Right.
There was this big salary crunch situation, and um, so that's when I instantly heard that kind of told me that I would no longer be a priority, as I was
Right.
before, because you do things for people that you want to, essentially,
Yeah. Yeah. You
in
do.
terms of value, and in terms of leadership, that kind of showed me that, they may be looking for new leaders to emerge, and I think that's fair, and I'm accepting of that as well. But as far as me not playing football, you know, um, that's not in my plans. I plan on playing football, and the facts remains in terms of my production and what I'm able to do on the field. And
Mm-hmm.
anytime I'm on the field, I produce, and I'm a game changer play, and I lead my teammates. So, um, yeah. So I mean, I'm accepting of their decision. Um, I'm respectful of Rick Maiden and the decisions he's making for his team. He brought me in the league, surprisingly.
I knew that.
So
Yeah. I knew that. I
yeah,
remember that.
so I mean, I have respect for him. He is taking on a new role, and more tasks, and so um, be interesting to see how that unravels. But as for me, I'm more so focused on what I have to gain, not what I have to lose. So I've never been the type to be a victim to any circumstance. So I feel like this puts me in alignment with what I plan to do with my family. So and what is naturally for me.
Right.
If it is to come back later, and a team needs someone or whatever, um, and the price is right and the fit's right, then hey. But as of for me now in free agency, I'm just looking for a fit that gives me the best chance to win. And ultimately, I want to win. That's one thing I haven't done, and so that's one thing I'm chasing.
Right.
So no offense to anything, but
Yeah,
you
no, no,
have
no. I don't
to,
see it that way at all. You have a very good attitude about it, and it's different from a fan's
yeah.
perspective, from a player's perspective. And you've been here 10 years, and I told you I've always watched you play, and so it's
Hmm.
kind of like I don't play in the CFL. I never have. I played a bit of football, but so it's very different perspective. That's part of the reason why you joined us today, is because it's good to get your
Yeah.
perspective on the whole situation. But I also wanted to throw some questions to you and stuff to you that was a little more fun too, right? Because I'm always
Yeah.
curious what other sports you watch besides football, because obviously football is a thing and will always be a thing
Hmm.
for you. But
Hmm.
what else do you like to watch when you're just kind of relaxing? Basketball, baseball?
My favorite sport um, outside of football is basketball.
Okay.
Basketball is something I've always loved, and my peers and family kind of made me this football player. You know, I've kind of they created this football persona for me because I thought I was going to be a basketball player. They're like, "Oh, you're too short to be a basketball player." So I also
have you listed at 5'9" or 5'10", correct? Should we say
5'9", 5.5, 5'9.5". You know, that's my size. You know, so I've always thought I play basketball. I use my movements. I create, or I could make a lot of connections. Like catching the ball is essential to getting the rebound. You know, you know, and stuff like that. Dribbling and evading, you know, O-linemen and different people on defense is essential to shaking someone, you know, and moving around, you know. So I make those connections there. So basketball is one of my things. UFC has been one of my things since I can remember. So UFC is probably top in basketball right now since like probably 2016. UFC's kind of been my thing. So me and my wife, that's something we watch every weekend. Every Saturday, you know, me and my wife, we have like little friendly bets around the house about UFC, different fighters, and you know who's gonna win and why. You know, and you know this guy's living in his car with his girlfriend. You know, and he has a fight. You know, so he's got more. He has his heart and soul into the fight, into the game. You know, and this guy's more established. You know, so who do you think's gonna win? You know, and so UFC, basketball. Let's see. Just about anything. I try to watch hockey. You know, just cause, you know, come from Canada.
You lived in Vancouver.
Canada, you know,
you lived in Vancouver for 10 years.
You know,
right?
Yeah. So there's a slight interest there. I pulled a rookie Connor Bedard card, so that kind of piqued my interest. So I got that rookie trading Connor Bedard card.
Oh, you got yourself a Connor Bedard card. Nice.
Place any bids there, you know.
Well, he's from North Vancouver, where I actually live. He grew up near where I live in North Vancouver. So kind of funny you mentioned Connor Bedard because he's all the rage right now just because he's such a popular player and he's so highly touted, or was highly touted as a draft pick and was picked first overall by Chicago and then made the league and is, you know, in his second season. And he's a superstar in the making, or he already is a superstar, if you want to be honest. But just wanted to let you know, too, that someone has left a comment in the chat. It says, Ryan Miller, any team would be lucky to have TJ on it. So thanks, Ryan, for your comment. We appreciate it. A couple more things for you. One of the things that I really liked that I saw on you that I pulled was all the work that you do with youth. And you mentioned sort of being of service. But I'll drop this in the chat because I found this from 2023. And you were working with kids in South Surrey, White Rock. And there's an interview that you had with the BC Lions on with a young man who was playing football in Surrey. Tell me a little bit more about how that role came about, because that's an interesting thing, right? Because that's one of the things now that if you're not going to be in BC, that I don't want to say you're going to lose, but tell me about how that came about, because that's really sort of like a critical thing, right? That youth mentorship.
Yeah, it was just like one of the rising stars in the area, you know, and in the community, you know, and I got a chance to, I don't remember his name. I got a chance to ask him questions, you know.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that.
Those guys to, you know, kind of develop that aspect, you know, of the game, because as they continue to play, you're going to be getting interviews, you know, people are going to know, you want to know your thoughts, and, you know, and it's important to kind of just see what his etiquette is in terms of that. And oh my gosh, the persona that he has, you know, and the etiquette and the professionalism he already, you know, that he showed, you know, just goes to show what he has, you know, the tools he has. So that's a great experience. But I do a lot of other things in the youth. I try not to make it sports related, but my emphasis on that is, well, my goal on that is, what I'm good at is teaching life skills through sports. So that's kind of my main thing. And I coach middle school basketball around Bellingham and Blaine, and 7th grade is generally my age. So 7th grade basketball is what I do on that spectrum. In Langley, and I work with at-risk youth as well in the Langley area. So just really just stretching myself out, trying to get a wide range, you know, cast a wide net of the people I'm able to help, and, you know, kind of influence and help find their, find their niche and what they like to do, and just find connectivity, help grow, help grow them, yeah. So that's kind of my calling, the youth, and even volunteering and emergency subbing at my kids' school to, impact the kids there, is generally what I do outside of sports, and the elderly as well, because I think it's inevitable, that I'm going to be taking care of my mother, and my wife's mother. At least I plan. So, having my footprint there in terms of taking care of the elders, but most importantly, teaching my kids that it's important to be of service to others, because that's how I was taught.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a good place to wrap this up. So thank you, TJ, for doing this. Really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Just so people can find out how to get a hold of us or get a hold of the podcast, facebook.com/GoldenV podcast, buzzsprout.com/1869778, goldenvpodcast.ca. Send us an email. Thanks, Ryan, for your comment today. Send us an email to info@goldenvpodcast.ca.